Yes, that is the order of business. Order of operations is if I go live too early, YouTube doesn't like it. Gotta check my audio. Yep. So we're live on the YouTubes. We got the audio. And again, people ask, "Hey Chris, why do you double check the audio before you start live streaming?" I've been burned. I've had to re-record these things a couple times. Not often. Like, I've probably done it like 5 times. But that's 5 hours of my life that I would like back, because I oftentimes these sometimes can be pretty short. Like, minimum is 20 minutes, but maximum goes well over an hour. You lose one of those, man. Ugh. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. We've got some cool stuff here to talk about today, though, and I'm just waiting for CouchBot to give us the heads up that we are able to leave the station. It's a cold gray morning here in Chicago, but it's definitely worth our time to get this underway. CouchBot has fired, so I'm just going to go live, and we can get started looking at the work that's been turned in this morning. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatics. Time for the feedback loop. So good to have you along. We've got a couple of projects here in the hopper today. Abby and Ricardo are both here. Abby's working through Fresh Market, and she's in the story mapping phase, so she is like right at the cusp of beginning to wireframe this thing out. She's done a lot of research. She's been very busy baking out the stories and flows, and now she's setting priority. We use story mapping to set priority and to give us a sense of what is the total scope of what we're talking about here. And then Ricardo's working on the microcopy, so he's going through an existing flow that he's wireframed out in the schools project. So he's very close to the end of the schools project. So Ricardo's about to wrap up UX. Eddie, if you're watching this, pay close attention to where Ricardo's at, because he's just ahead of you on the curve. And then Abby is in Fresh Market. So anybody who's considering going through that project, pay close attention to what Abby is doing today, because she's definitely beginning to tie some of the parts together that are necessary for really planning. And what so much of what Abby's doing today is more project management. It's really taking into account, okay, what's the full scope of the thing that we're building, and frankly, what order are we going to build this? Projects can get really big, and when I say really big, there are some projects that are difficult for me to even hold inside of my head, let alone walk you through in a session like this. But this Fresh Market project, it's a pretty big early stage web app, and there's multiple sides to it. So you have the users, you have obviously the people that are handling the fulfillment of the orders. So you've got two sides that are going to be utilizing this product, and sometimes it can be very difficult to figure out, okay, where do we begin building? And that's what Abby is figuring out now. Is like, okay, with my first move, this is what we're going to design. So let's go ahead and share the screen and take a look at where Abby and Ricardo are at. Okay, well, that's definitely not Abby or Ricardo's work. That is part of the working with images inside of Figma video that will be coming out shortly. For anybody who's just getting into Figma, know that there's a new actually batch of videos forthcoming. So very excited about that. We are looking at, well, that's Ricardo. I want to focus here on Abby. And you might be wondering, Chris, you just said you were going to be looking at user stories, or the user story map. Yes, but I really do want to emphasize that all of these methods are intertwined. So just like you couldn't really create user flows without the user stories telling you what flows that you needed to make, you really can't do the story map without looking at your priority canvas from the affinity diagram. And the priority canvas says, okay, variety and types of food, learning new ways to work with food. That's, that variety angle was something that she heard from her user interviews. So that's something that I'm going to be looking for is are the tasks that are oriented with variety in this first cut. Because if they're not, that means that the alignment between the story map and the affinity diagram are off. But if I see some variety options listed in the story map, then I can check that box and go, yeah, she's clearly still in alignment with the affinity diagram and the priorities that were set there. So this is not a, oh yeah, I checked the box because I did user stories, and then I checked the box because I did user flows, and I checked the box. This is not a check the box sort of program. I always am going back to prior work to make sure, are we staying true to what we said we were going to do. Now, can you change your mind? Yeah, you can obviously change your mind, and I would encourage you to make adjustments to your projects as you go, but you want to make them deliberate changes. You don't want the changes that you make to just be, oh, I forgot, so I guess I'm doing something different now. That would be a bad change to inject. A good change to inject would be, yeah, we were working through something and that's not going to work. So we ran into a barrier and now we're having to work around that. That would be an acceptable change because you observed something was purposely in the way that you're now having to adjust around. And sometimes even when it just gets really hard, you have to push through it to meet your objective. Those are case by case though. The big thing I want you to do is make sure that you're not just changing direction because, oops, forgot, right? Okay, so now that we've taken a look at Abby's affinity diagram, or affinity map as it's often referred to, let's go over here to her user story board or user story map. And she's got, these are really what we refer to often as epics. So she's got her user activities, user tasks, user stories, and then we've got release 1, release 2, and release 3. So she's really following the outline that we provided in the exercise. Like I see the exercise and the things that we went over in the writing appearing here. The one thing I will say, Abby, is like right now you've got this set up on these Post-it notes, and this is very much what we would do on a wall if we were all in physical offices right now. This is very much what you would probably see. However, I do want to point out that if we go over here to templates, there is a, let's see here, it should be right, yeah, here. There is a user story map that if we apply it, and I'm just going to grab the whole thing here and move it up here so it doesn't get in the way of what you've got. If I pull that user story map in, this gives us, it looks like I drug one of the items out. This gives us everything we need for our epics, our tasks, our epics are stories and our tasks. And the interesting thing here is if you were to add a new one, it automatically adjusts everything for you. So if I needed to add a task, I could do that. Oh, I need to add another task. Oh, I'm going to add another task. And in this case, it's like, okay, well, you know what? This story here really belongs down at the next line. And it automatically makes those adjustments for you. So this is why I really like to use the affinity map, not affinity map, sorry, the user story map template that is inside of Miro. What you did down here is fine. Okay, I want to make that perfectly clear. There's nothing wrong with this. But this requires like a lot of you gotta go through and select these, and then move them over, and then put new ones in, and it gets fussy. Okay, so just know that like next time you're going through, you do have a template here that's available to you that you could utilize. But let's focus on let's move ourselves back into this. So the epics that you have identified are create account, select meals, edit meals, order meals, and okay, so that's what our epics are. Basically, create an account because you need a way to like log in and basically have a profile. So that makes sense. And I know that you said, hey, I didn't have this in my user flows. It's because it's one of those base unit things. And this I've got three things that I've really kind of outlined, or that I always mention when I talk about story mapping. And it is that this needs to reflect what tasks this needs to reflect the tasks and stories that you've already built out in your flows. If something's missing from here, you're going to pay for it with your time, because it's going to be unaccounted for. So if there's something like create account that wasn't in your flow, but you're like, yeah, I need that, that's fine, add it. I would rather you go through and say, yeah, by the way, we've got to have this flow because I didn't map that out because it's obvious it has to be there. There's nothing unique about it, but it has to be in the build. You have to account for time for that. And if you don't account for time, then you're basically saying, oh, well, I guess we're just going to have to make that up on the fly. We're not going to get extra time because we didn't budget for it properly. So you've done the right thing here. The second part is, referring back to your affinity map and saying, in that affinity map or diagram, does the priorities reflected here reflect what I said that I was going to be doing? And we talked about variety, and it's real easy for us to go back and look at. I'm going to flip this around a second. It's real easy for us to go back and look at it. It's a variety of food. What are the options? Am I showing options? Am I helping people learn about new ways to work with food? So this is like where the recipes come in and whatnot. Convenience is also important, and this is delivery timing, and time. So I'm going to be looking specifically at this area down here where we talk about ordering meals. And I'm going to be looking for the timing aspects of the meal order. Okay, so first of all, let's and then also one other thing, and this is really important. You have to build enough to actually test. So if you're not building enough if you don't have enough user stories here to fulfill the things that you need to test in version 1, then you haven't properly built that first release. That first release is probably going to be pretty thick. Most of your options shouldn't be in release 2. There should be enough in release 1 to actually run a test. So let's see what you have here. So I've got create an account. So that means that I can log into an account. I can update username. I can put in a username and a password, and then that's going to dump me off somewhere. I can go in and I can view my profile settings. I can enter my address, phone, payment, email. That's going to be necessary because I need to get this stuff delivered, right? Select meals, so I can search. So I've got a nav, and then this, I've got the nav, and then I've got the search bar field. I should have a results page. Like if I go through and search, I'm going to have results. I'm going to have results appear. So I'm not sure if like just the ability to, oh yeah, the search is on the screen. I don't know. Is that enough? So search by filter. So this is basically I can filter all the food that's on the page. I can look at recommendations. So is this giving me that variety that we've talked about? Possibly. I do think that, like, this is going to, search by filter, you know this is going to have other, then I've got filter options down here. So if I've got search by filter, but the filter options are separate from it, is that really, like, is that page even possible? Because now I've said it's a search by filter page, but with no filter. Okay, so it sounds like there's a potential disconnect there. Quick add. So I see quick add to cart, and then I see quick add, and then I see add to cart button. So I'm unsure what the difference is between those two things. Let's look down here. Edit meals. So I can customize a meal. So I can edit the ingredients. So I've got check edit ingredients. So I'm guessing I see the meal, and I've got the ingredients I can edit. But then I've got this checklist of ingredients. So if I can edit the ingredients, can I not see the checklist? Like I'm guessing that this is, and this is check or uncheck boxes of ingredients desired. That sounds like edit ingredients. So it seems like this is really up here. Upgrade protein, drop down of options. I could totally see that as being secondary, but like this edit ingredients, I could just as easily see this as being, part of edit ingredients. But if you're saying that this is an upgrade, that's a little different than saying I don't want any salt, I guess, or I don't want any mayo. So I can view the cart. So it sounds like right now, if I put a meal in the cart, it's just there. I'm not gonna worry about the removing the meal. I've got an order button. I've got confirm order. I've got confirmation pop up that tells me that I've ordered. I've got overview of what I ordered. Do I have payment method? Do I have delivery address? Because right now, when I'm, I do see how I can update these things in settings. But if I don't have let's think about this. If I create an account and I create my username and password, when do I enter my email? When do I enter my payment? When do I enter my phone and address? When do I enter those things? I'm going to guess if I don't enter them on account creation, I enter them somewhere down here. So I feel like that's a missing piece of the puzzle. So right now, when I look at this, I look at this and I go, okay, I see a lot of user stories that the first task really masks. It matches, like quick add to cart, quick add, view order, overview, view cart. But is there more to this that is currently missing? And I think about like the order. Okay, if I haven't already entered that payment information, if I haven't already entered that address elsewhere in the platform, and I can't see where I have, I'm going to need to enter it down here. One other big piece of this that I believe is missing is how do I select a plan? Like what are the plans? Like I get 2 meals per week or 5 meals per week or whatever. How do I put my order together? Am I ordering just individually? I thought this was like a subscription service, and maybe it's not. Maybe you've gone a different direction. But when we look back here at this food options, this is the filtering thing, and I think that's why, like, that filtering thing really needs to be there. ingredients. You've got something about ingredients, but am I able to see them? New ways to work with food. I'm not sure I really see that represented here. Like what are the, like what do you mean by new ways to work with food, and is it currently here? So those are the aspects that I would say need to be addressed. This very much is one of those moments where you will have a lot of discussion about what are we building, what are we doing out of the gate, what should a week from now, what should I expect to see? Am I going to have something that is functional in that I could test it a week from now? Is this true to what we said the priorities were? If it's not, what did we drop and why did we drop it? I see a lot of I would say that you've probably got about 70% of what you're going to need. Okay, you need a meals page. You need to be able to add something to a cart. You need to be able to find the meals. You need to be able to check out. You need to be able to create an account. Like those things, yes, all the way, gotta have them. It's the details within that I begin to become concerned with, and I don't know if your build one is robust enough. Okay, so take another look at this, and determine what is missing from here when viewed through the guise of this. And if you can get to that point, I think you'll be in a much better position to fully understand what's ahead of you in the wireframe. So I think again, and we've kind of talked about this, Abby. I think you're like one iteration away from being able to get out of the gate. But the good news here is you've gotten the idea of, okay, here's the epics, here's the big things I've got to do. Here are the tasks that need to be addressed. Here are the individual things that are associated with each of those tasks. So you've done a good job there. Now what we need to do is make sure that the details here are robust enough that we can actually put something in front of a user after you've built out your wireframe and you've dressed it up with styles and made it into a prototype. We want to make sure that when it actually hits user testing, like they can do something with it. And right now it feels like it's missing some pieces. So I don't want you to get to that point and go, wow, this is like half of what I needed. Okay? All right. So Ricardo, you are in wireframes, and I'm going to go over here to your flows to wireframes. So there's a few things here that I wanted to mention. And the first one, this is very just like, hey, by the way, I want you to look out for adding images to a wireframe of any sort. It doesn't matter if it's finished or not. The moment that we add images and we add color and whatnot, that's the moment that people begin to focus on what it looks like and less on how it functions. When we're in the realm of gray boxes and plain text, everybody's still like, oh, you're still like connecting it together to see how it works. The moment that an image starts to leak in or some color starts to leak in, then it's like, yeah, I don't like how it looks. And then you're like, well, I'm not done with it. Oh, okay, yeah, but I still don't like how it looks. Like our mental shift goes, oh, this is what it's supposed to look like. I know that's not the case, but the moment you start dropping things in, that's when it becomes a problem. Now, live text, not a big deal because you haven't really stylized this yet at all. So once we get into that, we can have that discussion. Next piece I wanted to mention is, like, right now you're going through and you're adding like, hey, invalid username and password, check check for caps lock, or click forgot password. The one thing I'll mention here is if you have a situation where it is password, don't tell me invalid username and password. If it's both, that's fine. But if it's not both, like don't tell me, it could be, the classic one is invalid username or password. It's like, which is it? And also username, I should be able to see what that is. That shouldn't be the invisible text. Like if I type in my username, I'm not worried about that being displayed. I am worried typically about the password being displayed. As we come down further, we've got right now it says could not find teacher. That's actually in the placeholder text for the search field. Never want it there. This could not find teacher needs to basically be out here somewhere, and then you could say check spelling or current or search by subject. This is also where if you said couldn't find teacher, you could put some options below, like perhaps these teachers would match, or perhaps these subjects would help. Like it's not uncommon for, and this is something you see in social media a lot. If you go to the search field, it will pre-populate below the search field, like here's trending topics, or here's people that other people or recent searches, like that all could be in this view. As we come down, let's look at this. Same thing there. We'll get into this. I would prefer to see all of these buttons presented in a similar size. And again, this is you've begun adding icons and stuff. I begin to make the leap to what's it look like? You're going to find this to be limiting when it comes to, the name of a teacher and the subject. That's going to get really long. So we're probably going to have to address the information architecture setup here. But, you've got the right information. That's not an issue. But the length and what you're allowing for is probably a bit limited. Also, search would rarely, if ever, be down here. It generally would be up here somewhere. We've got some work to do on like the scope and size of this. One of the things that I was working with yesterday was this prototype where I was building out like an iPad build, and what you'll see is like this is the 17 pixels. That's the size of the nav bar. You kind of get a sense of just how out of scale something like this H1 is when you look at it, and it's at 65, but the largest of the nav bars is typically much smaller than that. So just something to keep in mind. Here 2 of 4. Please fill out section below. Okay, so that's fine. That's a little bit of helper text that keeps people from trying to hit this next button. Does this look correct? So this is like trying to provide some feedback, or give you like a confirmation screen. So that's not bad. You're adding the right layers here. It's just you're very early in design. You've probably never designed for these interfaces before, based on what I'm seeing here, which is fine. That's what you're in the program to learn. One thing I would say about this particular interface is this isn't a scale issue; it's more of a function issue. So I would suggest, reviewing other applications. I mean, this is the classic, like, I'm going to get the sketchbook out and I'm just going to draw what I see in that flow so that I have a better idea of, that's how it's typically done when I'm pulling images in from a different place. Right now, this is like desktop. So this would be literally like I want to attach an image, and if it's coming from somewhere else, the flow is going to be a bit different than this. So I would go study that. But overall, like where you add it content in the wireframe, it makes sense. The micro copy that you add makes sense. Where you add it needs improvement, but this is your first stab at it. You've never done this before, so I think from that perspective, you're doing a very good job. But as we get into the interface exercises, I'm hoping to see some improvement on the placement of this information and the size and scale of the typography that you're using. All right. So with all that said, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Feedback Loop. Thank you to Abby and Ricardo for submitting work today. User flows and microcopy, not user flows, story mapping and microcopy are pivotal points or pivotal methods to use for really project management and information architecture. So making sure that you have a firm grasp of what you can do inside of those methods is key to the long-term success of your project. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a busy afternoon ahead. I'm going to see many of you soon. For the rest of you, hope to see you right back here tomorrow for the end of the week feedback loop. I'm Chris Courtney for New Pragmatic. Take care.